एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
सिर्फ मेरा नाम क्यों?
अरे जिसने घर खरीदा है उसी का नाम होना चाहिए ना।
और फ्रेंड्स क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे कि काश अपनी बीवी भी ऐसी होती।
पिछले 100 सालों से ऐसी हर अच्छी शुरुआत का साथ दे रहे हैं हम, यूनियन बैंक ऑफ इंडिया।
एक बार आके देख लो, कहीं मैंने कोई गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी।
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion, Inclusive, Resilient, and Innovative Growth Drivers, Banks, NBFC, Small Finance Bank. We have got very eminent speakers, Mr. Jaspal Bindra, Executive Chairman of Centrum Group, Mr. Ajay Kanwal, MD and CEO of Jana Small Finance Bank, and Mr. Gaurang, full-time Director and President of Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited. This will be presented by Mr. Tomal Bandopadhyay. Over to Mr. Tomal Bandopadhyay, sir.
Thanks, Arnab. Very good afternoon and very warm welcome to the third session. Yes, for me, this is the third session. And thankfully, the new normal, COVID, those words are not there in that section, in this session. It talks about inclusive, resilient, and innovative growth drivers. But I presume that the entire Bengal Chamber show today, this digital show, is against the backdrop of pandemic and the COVID reality. So even though it's the new normal and all those differences are not there, I think three gentlemen representing a commercial bank, a small finance bank, and non-banking finance company, three very critical components of Indian financial system, will talk keeping in mind new scenario, what we have gone through since March last year. Jaspal, I'll start with you. Tell us, it talks about inclusiveness, it talks about resilience, and it talks about innovations. Of course, what is the one more very critical tool in this new landscape is digitalization. Everybody talks about the way the financial sector operates in India. It will be very different. It's already started. The increasing digitalization. I think when it talks about payment space, unfortunately, there's no payment bank here. I wish one of them were here. I think India probably the most happening place globally on the payment space. So digitalization, Nandan Nilekani has said what would have been done in years, now it's taking a week. So we also talk about digitalization. Jaspal, first you tell us, give us a little preliminary remarks, how things have panned out for the close to a year now. Because that's your resilience and innovations are inter this. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Tamal.
And you are not representing Centrum, Jaspal, you are representing the non-banking financial industry in India.
Correct. No, thanks, Tamal. So I think, it depends on what perspective we take and from which point in time we take it. So if we take where we were sitting around April, May, June in 2020, things have panned out phenomenally well for everyone in the sector. Both in terms of in March, April, May of last year, the feeling was that liquidity is completely choked. That seems to have improved considerably in the later months of last year. And collection was obviously doomed to zero. Everybody had reduced disbursements to zero. I think most NBFCs are back in the market in terms of disbursements, and definitely collection record for everyone, subject to some degree variation, has improved considerably over this period of time. So I think from a resilience point, whether we call it the resilience of the client or of the NBFC sector, I think that has been quite well borne out through this period. So all the accidents that we had in the sector were pre-COVID knowns,
Yes.
but during the COVID period, actually no new culprit has emerged, and hopefully the ones are rescued. Of course, a lot is remaining to be seen because we had the moratorium till August and then the Supreme Court judgment where you can't classify. So we don't know, the clear picture might emerge and there may be some challenges, but a lot of support has come in between.
Okay, this is the preliminary remarks. Mr. Shah, you represent a commercial bank and tell us, loved by the investors, but not exactly by all customers. They find you a bit of risk averse. Of course, on your side, you are pretty diligent in risk management and underwriting. That's what you are not as forthcoming to giving loans, but that's a separate story. Yeah, tell us, Mr. Shah, how has been the journey in the last 1 year?
Overall, I share the sentiment I share the sentiment which mentioned by Jaspal. Largely, if I look at it, when we were in April, May, June, I think there was a lot of uncertainty, how the pandemic will end, we were in lockdown, how the economy will revive and all that. So there was an expectation by September, I think we'll be 85%, we'll be back on track, and probably last quarter of 21, we should see some growth. And there was also the resilience testing, another thing, which was actually introduced by RBI, though many of us had done even before that. So compared to your April estimate, September estimate, for what would be 2021 end, I think we are we are better than both the estimate. Of course, the first estimate, the second was better than the first one. I think the only thing on the uncertainty side was a little RBI, in between expectation of NPA of 13.5 from 7.5, which my belief still is, I am still hopeful that the industry will do better than that. Because that's a very important thing. You have to have very clean balance sheets of all the financial institutions to probably take advantage of or to support the growth which is expected in the coming year. So I think overall on a credit fund, much better. Whatever was expectation on the secured side of the loan book, which actually behaved better than what was thought even in September. The unsecured side also, whatever was estimated is more or less in line with that. So I think more or less the industry estimation in terms of where we are or where to go from here looks right. The second most important thing, which on banking and very critical to probably support growth in future, I think all the private sector bank basically raised a lot of capital. So if you look at a capital adequacy of top 4 bank or even the next 4 bank to the top 4 bank are probably all 15% and above, and which is very critical in terms of supporting. The second part is the COVID provisioning. So I think most part of the gross NPA, including what has not been declared due to Supreme Court judgment, all are probably taken into account. Also, they are significantly well provided for. So I think we are all actually in a very strong balance sheet position to probably support growth. Now on a PSU side, I think the reforms which has been going on over the years, first is we have now 8 PSU bank less, which may not be much talked about, but all said and done, that also leads to some sort of efficiency. More capitalized bank absorbs some of the weaker ones. So I think they are also well capitalized. Banks have been recapitalized to the extent of more than 250,000 crore over the last 3 years. Plus in the coming budget, we have provided 20,000 crore. So I think overall, that point of view also, if I was just looking at an overall banking capital adequacy at 13.3 is quite fine for supporting any level of growth which may come. Same thing NBFC. NBFCs are also now probably in a much better shape than before. So all in all, I think we are in a growth-wise or to support that growth-wise. I think we look in a more optimistic situation than what we were earlier.
Thanks, Mr. Shah. So the theme of what Jaspal has said and Gaurang has said, the same is the theme of resilience. I think we are much better off than we would have thought last year. Mr. Ajay Kanwal is the MD and CEO of a large small finance bank, large and unlisted Jana Small Finance Bank. Ajay, tell us what's your take? Do you share their sentiment, their optimism, or slightly different?
First, thanks, Tamal, and good afternoon to all the viewers. I think first thing, Tamal, if you think of a few things one would remember from the last 10 months, it clearly is that organizations have to be prudent all the time. So if you're carrying a good capital buffer, you're carrying good liquidity, it's always safe for you. So one of the things that did strike very hard in the crisis was banks who were in good shape, had the right capital, had the right liquidity, were not very challenged. And in fact, look ahead with certain amount of confidence. So I think the prudent side of banking was very visible, and probably that was a lesson if people hadn't learned it in the past, that was the most crucial one. I think the second piece was very, I remember when March lockdown was announced, we thought by June we'll all be back to work. Then the lockdown got extended, and by June, everybody thought the world would end, because everything was bad news and the whole world was going wrong. And then suddenly when we escaped, it's become a V-shaped recovery and everybody is extremely positive. I'm sure if you looked at most people and their travel plans in the last 6 months, nobody would have thought that we are going to be so bullish today. So I think being adaptable, being nimble, very crucial. And I think banks or NBFCs who've been in that mode have been very successful. And I somehow think that COVID is not over. Who knows, a strain may appear or not appear. Remaining in adaptable, nimble mode may still be very crucial. I think the third piece, Tamal, is employees. I must tell you that being a small finance bank where our employees go out and collect, and they do that every day with hundreds of customers every month, I think the courage and the resilience shown by them mask every single resilience that any institution can show, because all credit to them. They've braved COVID, they've worn masks, some fell sick, they took the medicines. After the medicines recovered, came back to work. I think if I have to really salute anybody in this crisis, it's the employees. I think it's really heartwarming and such a strong sense of belief and confidence that we can see when we see the employees. Finally, I think less talked about, but I think the government and the RBI did a terrific job. I think we have come out better because of variety of actions taken. It didn't look so apparent then, but when one looks back, I think we've all come out well, because I did think there was a concerted government and RBI focus to get us out of the crisis. So, yes, resilience wouldn't have been possible without so many players really doing their parts well.
Thanks, Ajay. So I think all three of you have spoken the same thing, even though the language is different. How the different constituents played a critical role, be the employees, be the management, be the regulator, be the customers, be the government. But it's a pretty optimistic scenario. And all of you harp on the resilience of the Indian financial system in your own ways. So that's the macro talk. Now we'll go to the two specific things. It talks about inclusive, which is inclusiveness and innovations. And here I want you people to touch on your own, not speaking on behalf of the industry, but in your own organization, right? And I'm starting with Ajay. And because inclusiveness, it's the key to a small finance bank. I think under the RBI norms, 75% of the loan need to qualify for private sector lending, right? So keeping that in mind, that's one part. And second part is, of course, there's a growing belief that India could come up so fast and would go along much faster even. In fact, IMF data talks about India is the worst performing economy among the emerging markets, second worst after Mexico. But in 2021 and 22, India will be the best performing economy. And rural, it will be rural driven. That's what rural market driven. That's what internal impression is within India. So keeping that in mind, Ajay, can you tell us on this front of inclusiveness, inclusive growth, what are you saying? What is the plan? How do we move?
Thanks, Tamal. Tamal, as you know, as a small finance bank and our previous history being a microfinance institution, our priority sector lending is roughly in 95-96%. So for us, inclusiveness is more a way of life than something that we have to practice as a target or artificially. And the entire organization is built like that. I think what we can see really is there is at the bottom end of the pyramid, the balance sheets are weak. They certainly need more credit. And from our perspective, making sure that on a very prudent basis, either looking at new geographies, looking at increased credit, understanding who's back, and so that we can help him come back to his business moments. I think that's a primary focus. It's just a bit of more courage, doing more of the same, and really expanding geographically to our mind works. There is a bit of leap of faith also with customers. So customers who have not paid during moratorium are not necessarily bad because they really didn't have the money. Some people found it even tough paying after the moratorium. I mean, if you look at a customer in Bombay where metros were shut down, he had no business to, if you bring his goods from Palkar or Kalyan and Thana into Bombay and selling it, there was no local strength to support him. Now, how do you kind of imagine this kind of credit saying, before COVID, perfect customer, never missed a EMI, has not paid an EMI for the last 8 to 9 months. So I think now inclusiveness will go beyond economics of a human being to how do you look at his credit and what kind of empathy do you show, or what kind of, banking standard do you exhibit, given his past behavior for the last several months, which was out of his control, but certainly can make you uncomfortable as a banker. So I think to me, that is a bigger challenge of inclusiveness now. And we work with it every day. I don't know we have the perfect answer, but we keep experimenting more and more with that, because really a lot of the balance sheets at the bottom of the pyramid, I would think about 25 to 30% of balance sheets of the weaker sections would be challenged. By that, I mean, it's not ability to pay, but if you look at the track record of the bureaus, they wouldn't be perfect.
Okay, Ajay, I just want one little bit of a minute or so from you more before I go to Gaurang. Mr. Shah is while he spoke, he said that Kotak Bank's secured book is absolutely fine. There's nothing to worry about. Even unsecured book is not as bad as it could have been done. That's what Mr. Shah you said, right? Now, Ajay, I want you to talk about the secured versus unsecured book a little bit, and also because you're talking about inclusive growth, and you are a small finance bank giving small loans, rural versus urban.
Okay.
This two, just very short. Yeah.
I think obviously the secured book has done extremely well. In fact, it has done better than what we thought. So it is fair to say that secured has been a great business during the COVID crisis, and it has been before the COVID crisis too. Unsecured has performed to expectations, though I think there have been some challenges around specific geographies, whether it is a challenge around some political leadership or some challenge around trains not opening up, etc. But overall, I think it works very well. I think the reality, Tamal, is the guy who's doing secured has a better balance sheet than the guy who's doing unsecured. Because in some cases, he already has a property. And second, he's saved enough to buy a property. So it does have more capital than the guy who really borrows unsecured and is staying in rented or mostly a hereditary house. So it's normal to expect a difference. And I think margins in both areas are very different. So they kind of cover up mostly for the losses unless you've done something extraordinarily bad. So I think both business models are good. Obviously, if you look at NPA percentage as a single factor, secured looks nice. But if you looked at return on risk-weighted asset or you look at a risk-adjusted basis, both would look probably equally similar. Of course, depending on your book and who you are. On rural versus urban, I must say that originally began with brilliant rural, very bad urban. But as the migration happened from the cities to the rural areas, it became literally similar. I think most city centers have done well with the exception of two, which is Bombay and Calcutta. And I think the large challenge for the people of both the cities have been the transportation. They're so dependent on the metros and the locals. And a large population, certainly of our customer base in the suburbs, really transporting goods, going as somebody working at a house or a security guard, travel into that location. And you just can't travel because there is no means to travel. So I think two cities got a bit hard hit. I don't think so there's an extreme model saying this versus that. Urban in a microfinance sense was always 50 basis points worse than rural in the past. But that is not a big difference for us to avoid that market.
Okay.
An exception of two cities, all is good here.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Shah, as a bank, talk about this, one of the part we are discussing, that inclusive growth.
Yeah.
Also, India is talking about, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, that's the slogan for the current government. So tell us, sitting in your chair as a Kotak Mahindra Bank as a banker with Kotak Mahindra Bank, on your approach to this inclusive growth, and how will it pan out in the post-COVID scenario?
Yeah. So first, if I look at it, it's where Ajay, let me start from there. I think the microfinance itself as a book, though unsecured, has done extremely well compared to all the estimate which people have done it earlier, say in April or in September. So I think the resilience from rural as well as the microfinance sector has been agri and rural sector has been good. I share that sentiment between the urban and rural. The issue when I say unsecured, it is more in the personal loan of a higher segment. So microfinance has actually, I think the estimated loss today would be, as he rightly mentioned, about the kind of rate at which the lending happens. Compared to that, it is significantly better. It can take into its stride easily one such event in say 5 years or some pockets or segment where it happens due to some natural calamities or some legal interventions. Okay, let me put it this way. So I think that is one part. The second, if I look at as a bank, you always have a priority sector requirement. And if you look at different components, we always meet it in a way, unless you have a cost for it actually. Otherwise, the MSME, if I look at, is an area of focus. I think, which also reflects in a very high ECLGS, which we have, not that everyone has opted for, because you many times ask why the customer, or why the advances are not growing. As a credit, if I look at overall, the sector growth for banking credit is just 6%. So it is because the borrowers are not coming forward, or the banks are not lending. So I think very clear ECLGS scheme, which was there available to all, but we couldn't consume that 3 lakh crore in spite of that. Even in our own books, not more than 60% guy, or little less than that, actually opted for ECLGS. In fact, we had a direction. We went to each one of them and asked them, you tell us, I don't want it. See, it's not that the borrowing is available for 1 year moratorium and 3 years means everyone will take it. They also evaluate whether I'll be able to effectively use or not. So I think this entire segment where we have got a nearly 5%, 9,000 crore plus we disburse in ECLGS. So that shows our total overall book in that segment. Okay. So I think our MSME focus has been very good. Now, if I look at only pertaining to agri SME has been a very good business overall. And that shows it's not that the rural economy is only agri. There are a lot of services and other things which happens in those areas, and which can be supported. Of course, then there is a commercial vehicle, which is another priority sector, or a home loan, which is below certain amount. Plus, if I look at it overall, if I cover the whole aspect, which is your next segment, I think digitization also actually helps you reach out many places in a more cost-effective way. See, if you have, say, 1,600 branch versus somebody who has got 15,000 branch, or someone who has, say, 6,000 branches, I think you can always reach out through your digital way in many other areas. So I think combined together, I think there is no way but to have an inclusive growth for even banking as an enterprise to grow, or banking as a sector to grow. So I think that's where we are.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Shah. Yeah, Jaspal. Oh, Jaspal he was there just now. Something happened. Well, I mean, we will get him. We'll get him the moment he comes in. Maybe some technical glitch. So the other piece, what we are discussing is the innovations. And innovations, and I think digitalization is the two parts. Everybody is saying that India is the biggest market, the most sophisticated market at this point of time when it comes to digitalization, and everything will be changed. Jaspal, no, I can't see. I can see Jaspal now. Jaspal? No, we'll get him there. So maybe, Mr. Shah, why don't you, we'll Jaspal join us.
So Mr. Bindra is there.
But I can't see him. Jaspal?
You have to on his video. He has to on his video.
Yeah, and mute also, no? He's on mute.
He's on mute.
Can you just call him and figure out? Meanwhile,
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'll ask Mr. Shah. Tell us, Kotak is in the forefront of when it comes to digitalization and innovations. So, give us a sense of what are the innovations we can expect in a new normal scenario.
I think it's a one-way street. Actually, the digitization is going to grow, and it already at a very good place in terms of say payments. If you look at, I think simply payment, the number of options which an Indian customer has, nowhere in the world you have. So I think the way in which the open architecture system on payments which we have developed, simply it provides many options, and banks are also in forefront of it. So in terms of offering those products to the customer. Now, if you look at overall transactions, so any transaction which are of a simple nature will all probably, like take example of placement of deposit. I would say, which must be true for us, true for all, almost 80% plus deposits are today placed in the digital mode. Even the recurring deposits and all. So it's a very, very customer servicing user experience. If I look at like using of a chatbot, or maybe if a user experience point of view, if I want to have an intervention, I can have a more targeted intervention. Which customer will have a propensity to buy a particular product or something, so all this thing AI or machine learning based, and these are early days, analytics based, but ultimately it's going to get more and more well entrenched. The other thing, historically, as you used the word universal banking somewhere. Now, universal banking earlier was what was the model? Okay, I've got a bank, I will acquire a customer, I will have all other third-party product within my system, open architecture or otherwise, depending on regulation, I'll sell to the customer. I think the digitization allows you to probably acquire customer on all front. You can do from banking, you can do from asset management, you can do from insurance, which is also one important consumer need, and from securities. And you have seen on security side how much development, like the entire this discount brokerage and the entire development. So I think digitization overall in India has taken its speed. And as I many times say, as a metaphor, I say, okay, today I am a legacy player and basically a physical, branches and the networks and other thing. Now you got Amazon, who started as probably a digital bookstore in 1994, and he has a massive market share in online book sale. But many people may not know, okay, he has got a 33% market share even in a physical sale of a book. So he has traversed the entire journey from being a digital to physical. And the real concern for any financial services player today would be, okay, if they start offering a product, which is today there may be a regulatory barrier. So the transaction where there is no regulatory barrier, I think your revenue and those pools probably will vanish, which is to benefit of the customer in any case. And so like those you have to be, and we have to traverse that journey from the complete physical legacy to the digital side. So I think the experience which a consumer who is consuming the Amazon product and consuming a Kotak financial services product or HDFC or ICICI, anyone for that matter, he expects the same experience because he can't differentiate. Okay, once I'm dealing with this guy is different than this. So I think everybody is working hard at it, focused on it. So I think it will improve. And lastly, I think the efficiency ultimately will result in a consumer benefit. Like if you got a lesser number of physical branches, there are many countries like UK, if you look at, I think branches are already down by some 15%, 20%. And in fact, the Bank of England is requesting some of the iconic main street branches, like in our case, if you say in Fort or in BKC or something, you should keep it open, So I think this is what the journey, it's a one-way track. And I think it will just grow from here.
Thanks, Mr. Shah. So you're saying it's irreversible, and what you did not say, I'm saying this actually bank needs to be a marketplace, right? Like Amazon.
Yes. Yeah, the open banking, like if you look at today API, today look at a mobile banking. Today 180 type of transaction, including you want to deal in Amazon, you want to book an IRCTC ticket, you want to go to and everything should need to be, it's a banking at your fingertips, and you don't have to post demonetization, Kotak came up with the product called 911, which was a big hit. So 811. 811, sorry. 811 we call it. And you can realize when was the demonetization announced?
Yes, 2016.
811.
8/11. November 11. November 8, 2000. Jaspal, we missed you in between. So sorry, you have to make up for your absence. So I'm combining the two. And Ajay, hold on, I'll come to you on the innovation part for the last. But Jaspal, you talk about two things. One is the inclusiveness. You are there, if I'm not mistaken. You are there primarily in the SME and MSME segment. You are also there in the low cost housing segment, etc. So you are the right person who can talk about this inclusive growth, which NBFC like yours can fuel. So can you give us a sense of where do you see this inclusive financing coming? Is it rural India? Is it urban India? And what's the profile of the customers? How is it going? And second part is the innovation part, which actually, because you are out, so I grabbed Mr. Shah to talk about again on innovation. So you speak about in the first couple of minutes on inclusiveness, and second in innovations, which is basically nothing but digitalization, unless some very innovative products also you want to talk about. Yes, Pal.
Sure. This say that the banking industry for the last, 100 years, has paid far more attention to urban and to the top end of the pyramid. I think all of us who've grown up in banking have grown with that as our focus. And I think the opportunity is multifold larger in the middle and the lower half of the pyramid. So I think that is just a basic fact. The challenge with doing the inclusive are really two. It is about getting reach, and it's about being economical at a low ticket size. And I think that is where digitization and technology steps in, because what is now possible because of digitization, and we can get that reach, and we can hopefully get that economic cost subsidy. But to be fair, I think all of us on the panel agree that there is a very large section of Indian society which is either unserved or underserved. I mean, the most favorite data I always put is of registered MSMEs. There are probably an equal number of MSMEs that are not registered. But even in the registered MSME, only 8% have access to formal credit. So 87% don't have access to formal credit from the registered MSMEs. And they are very part of the GDP. So clearly having output and productivity, they are not getting the financial support to go any further than.
Oh, I think Jaspal's connectivity is a bit wonky. Yeah, so let him come back. Ajay, you know the question.
Yes.
Innovations. So tell us innovations both in terms of digitalization. What's your plan, and also innovations in terms of what other new things can be done.
Right. So Tamal, first, Gaurav made a very good example of Amazon. Amazon, if you buy a 10,000 rupee book or a 1,000 rupee book, same experience. And even if you're a poor customer or a rich customer, Amazon can't make out the difference. You have the same experience. And I think that is what digital is doing to banking. Doesn't matter you're a microfinance customer or you're a HNI customer of some, specific segment of a bank, you still get as good service on the mobile and the internet. You can still do bill payment, you get rewards program, you get debit ATM. So I think what it is doing is converting a large part of banking into a utility. And it is taking away the whole wealth divide where everybody gets similar service because digital enables it. So I think future of banking on a real forward-looking basis is how good is your advisory, how good is your risk management, because rest will anyway be digitized, I suspect. And India is blessed, no doubt about it. What we get from NPCI or UIDAI, I think is the best in the world. You can argue no other way about it. And you can see the developments also that are happening. So I'll give an example where we are taking some interest. NSEL is figuring out, or rather has started a process of e-stamping all the documents. Now, getting stamp paper from different states with different values, making it reach your office on the right time, getting it done, it's a lot of work and unnecessary for both customer and the bank. Now with NSEL actually going out and doing e-stamping, I think it saves a lot of money, it saves a lot of hassle, becomes very convenient for customer. So I think our stacks, which are primary drivers for all, we all invested in digital, but our real explosion happened because of the stacks that the country has. Otherwise, individually, each one trying to build something like that would have been A, not possible, and B, very suboptimal. So yes, I think the future that on digitization and innovation for us is better application of what we have. So for example, QR code, it's something everybody knows. We give a QR code with every loan account and with every savings and current account. So, you don't have to use a POS machine because POS machine costs you money. But if your customer in front of you has a wallet, you can straight transfer the money into your bank account and you save that cost. Now, not everybody is using it. Not everybody understands the value of it. So they're really using the QR code and, getting the whole, which if you look at China, QR code is a primary driver. It is not as yet true in India. And how do you then make that simple QR code application into a nationwide movement? where really the cost of doing business comes down, the ease of business happens. I mentioned e-sign as another. I think that's the other one that we are doing. And similarly, so it's more around application of what we have on the stack. And I still think a lot of digitization is to happen. Having said that, Tamal, I think the challenge is still in our segment, which is at the microfinance, the collections are a lot in cash. So I think there is a huge journey of getting the ecosystem at the bottom end of the pyramid and the rural areas to move away from cash. Not a very easy journey, I must say. So that will continue for, I guess, another couple of years till everybody really gets more formalized. And I think that will be the challenge which will continue for us.
Thanks, Ajay. Jaspal, you could not finish because of the technical glitches on the innovation digitalization part. Can you talk a couple of minutes, Jaspal?
Yes, so I think about
Jaspal, I think can you put off your video? Only depend on audio. The bandwidth will be saved then.
Okay.
Probably.
Is that
just it's better. It's better. Yeah.
So I think I agree with everything that has been said in terms of the growing sort of drive towards digitization, and that's here to stay and grow. My only worry is that in this process, we shouldn't lose the human element. My worry is that we may go too far on digitization because, when we talk to customers, when we talk about 5 lakh loan for housing, it might seem like it can be a routine transaction because it's a small ticket. But for that person, it's the biggest financial decision he's making in his life. And he likes a touch and feel of someone. I mean, there's something tangible. I don't think so anybody who's buying a house for the first time as the most expensive thing he has bought will be happy to just do it on the screen. He will want some touch and feel. And I think the same as Ajay said about collections. There is an effective station at a collection just sort of putting the money through system. And I think it will take some time. So I think there will have to be a mix. But clearly, if we look at the composition of what was physical and what was digital, that will skew increasingly every passing year in favor of digital.
Okay. Thanks, Jaspal. Don't go away. Just one small 1 minute of each probably, or whatever little bit of time is this. I'll ask Ajay and then Jaspal and then Gaurang will have the last word. Basically, we spoke about it's an interface with customer and how things are changing, etc. But can you give us a sense how as an entity yourself is changing? How was a profile of a bank in your case, Mr. Shah's case, in Ajay's case, and in Jaspal's case in BFC? Like the how you operate. Now, do you see now more flexibility? Will you allow people working from home that is more cost effective and most productive? Probably barring treasury, everybody else can work from home. Do you see the branches being changed, the profile of branches, everything else? Do you see the banks and non-banking finance companies post-COVID will be very different logistically than what it was till 2020? Ajay?
Yeah, so Tamal, there will definitely be a change. And again, depends on the kind of business you're in. For example, for us, collections will always be till we find a decent answer to cash, face-to-face. So that can't change. But yeah, wherever possible, whether it's technology, whether product managers, I think more flexi work from home will happen. So there is no doubt about it. I think one big change will happen on is welfare of employees. I think somewhere we took health and safety as granted. And I think the pandemic has opened a different context in our heads of what we should do for the well-being and hygiene and upkeep and betterment of employees. I think that has changed permanently, at least certainly for us. Logistically, 100% correct. Less physical offices, more work from home. No need to come for a regional meeting or a zonal meeting. Let's Zoom. So I think travel will come down. Hotel bills will come down. Zoom and Pluji's bills will go up. I think those are kind of given for sure. I think other than that, how customer interacts with you will change. I think incrementally, with video KYC coming on board and that becoming slowly a moment, I think beyond opening an account, video KYC and doing video KYC for a lot more things may become real. So distant interaction with customer, which meets what Jaspal said. They will be humans, but they won't be physical in nature. So digital will play its role by making sure your advisory is strong, but doesn't have to be, so somebody sitting in Bangalore can advise somebody sitting in Delhi. It doesn't matter. As long as he's a good guy, there is good connectivity and we are in a good form. So I do see a big change coming up and all of us will drive it because it works in everybody's favor.
I think it's very critical, important thing you said that beyond logistics and processes, the organizations also will be more human, more welfare oriented. Yeah, Jaspal, are you there?
Yes,
Yeah.
here. So
Just a minute. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Jaspal.
So work from home was actually even pre-COVID home very much something that the West was practicing. In the West, it's very popular to work from home 1 day a week, 2 day a week kind of thing. And but unfortunately, there was a big stigma to it, both in the West, but definitely in India. Basically, if you said I'm working from home, it's like taking day off.
Okay. I think we lost again.
Yeah.
So anyway, this glitches. We can't help it. Gaurang, last yours is yours.
Oh, I think pre-COVID and post-COVID, I think that it will be combined together in terms of working. I think as a bank, we have also identified how probably people will be required at desk, what will be that percentage of employees, and people who can work from home as well as from office. So I think people are encouraged to come to office only when they want to socialize, because it's also about, we are all social animals. We need to get together, team building, feeling to a particularly new employees. The older ones, which are fine because they know each other. So even they are on a Zoom call, they are fine. But the new one to get, I think some of those parties getting well blended with this in terms of. So I think we gained out of whatever has happened. Maybe it's and I think personally, I go twice, 2 days I try to find out in a week where I go, but I go to office when I'm a little freer. Because when you go there, you would like to chat with somebody or you like to have a little bit of banter here and there, and then you come back. When you got a very back-to-back, meetings, then you're better. You save that time of traveling and coming back and all that. So I think it's a good blend which will emerge. And so far as as an extension of the digitization and the entire thing, I think is about this physical branch network. I think the importance of those huge branch network is now reducing. The branch sizes, the way number wise will be there. Branch sizes will change. There will be more a ATM kind of a stuff which may do more than what they are currently doing. So there may be many such models which will emerge over a period of time. So I think that's the one, and that saves money. Or the banking is an intervention, so that saves money and efficiency for all people who are involved.
Thanks, Mr. Shah. So we come to the end, or the bit of a glitch on the Jaspal side, but overall, I think what we have heard in the third round is a repetition of what we had heard in the first round and second round. So if I need to summarize, instead of doing only summarizing, because I did not summarize any of those rounds because of the time constraint. So let me take a minute. In the first round, we had ex-Deputy Governor Mr. Mundra and Chandrasekhar Ghosh, who works primarily with the bottom of the pyramid, even though he is a universal bank. Second, we had two large public sector banks, Punjab National Bank and Union Bank. And third, we have a large SFB and a large private bank and an NBFC run by Jaspal. So I think the central theme in the new normal or the new reality is following. One is this: we are far better off than we had thought. And all of you probably feel that RBI's estimate about the asset quality deteriorating because of COVID is a bit conservative. Will come up probably better than what RBI had thought in December. And that shows the resilience of the system. I think the key thing that comes out is this: Indian financial system, be it bank and NBFC, what happened in 2018 is the past. But now we are a very resilient system. Financial stability is there. And even though the NPAs will go up, you are building the cushion in terms of making higher provisioning. So nothing to be worried about. That's point number one. Point number two is this: the digitalization, it's a one-way street. It is irreversible. That's what you said. I think banks need to treat themselves as marketplace, not any bank anymore. And finally, I think everything, right from the tools, how the banks operate, to their processes, and even how they treat their employees, everything will be changed. So it will be more human approach, welfare-oriented approach, more work from home, different kind of branches, etc., etc. So on the one hand, you will cut your cost, get more productivity. On the other hand, I think customers will be better served for multiple reasons. I will not say bye-bye COVID, because we don't know. We are still apprehensive whether new strain would come up and will be more inconvenience. But as we speak, the story is the story is of optimism, story of resilience, story of innovations. So welcome new normalcy in the Indian financial system. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you,
Very
Mr.
much.
Shah. Thank you, Jaspal. Over to you, Arnab.
Thank you, sir. It was really a very wonderful session, and we are also very grateful to you. Despite of your busy schedule, all of you have joined, and we are thankful to Mr. Jaspal Bindra, Executive Chairman of Centrum Group, Mr. Ajay Kanwal, MD and CEO of Jana Small Finance Bank, and Mr. Gaurang Shah, whole-time Director and President of Kotak Mahindra Bank. And with this, we would end the opening session of the Financial Market E-Conclave. Mr. Bandyopadhyay had already summarized the entire thing that we have learned, and we have concluded with a positive note. And we look forward to get into the more incisive analysis on the capital market and the insurance market at the later part of the day. So with this, we are just closing this session, but before that, we are really thankful to all our sponsors, the media people who would be covering this event, more than 300 participants who are in cloud and different social media who are watching this program live. We are thankful to all of you and thankful to all the speakers for joining us. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
Thank
concluding
you.
this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.